Today, we are baking a loaf of tasty gluten-free bread, starting with bread mix from No. 1 Gluten-Free. You may purchase bread mix and many other mixes at no1glutenfree.com. Let's get started to 3 easy steps to tasty gluten-free bread.
Hi, my name is Jack Wheeler, and today we're going to show you how to make gluten-free white bread using No. 1 gluten-free bread and roll mix. In the mixing bowl, we have the water and the egg whites that you use in the bread recipe as is shown on the back of the bag. We're obviously making a larger batch than you would make at home. We make about 12 loaves at a time. And this is the bread mix. We just pre-scale it and have it ready. You would just dump the bag of mix that you would have and the instant yeast in your mixing bowl. The instant yeast doesn't need to be rehydrated. It can mix right in. Okay, this is going to mix until it's until the starches start to take up the moisture. We hold the oil back, and this is listed on the back of your package. Hold the oil back until the water has had a chance to combine with the starches. If you were to put the oil in early, the starches would take up the oil and not fully hydrate. So now that's had a chance to mix. We're going to add our oil. At home you would add about a tablespoon of oil. We've got 12 tablespoons here because we're making 12 loaves of bread. And then I'm going to get an additional amount of water. At home, you would add about 1 tablespoon of water. You always like to scrape the bowl down. If you're using like a Hobart KitchenAid, you would do exactly this. Take a long-handled spatula, scrape the bowl down, and this will give you a much better, much more thorough mix. These are probably the most handy thing that were ever invented for the kitchen. Just plastic bowl scrapers. And they're available online. About a minute and a half. After that moisture starts to be taken up by the dough mass, you can see that we're now able to put this up in second speed, and we can get a more complete mixing. You don't have to worry about over mixing it because there's no gluten in there to cause the product to get tough. What we're doing is we're making sure that all of the starches that are of course a component of the mix are able to take up all of the moisture and incorporate the oil. Part of this process also is going to rehydrate the instant yeast. The instant yeast will take up the moisture it needs to become active again and properly ferment the dough. So we're going to give this about another 45 seconds. Now you can see that this is starting to not form a dough. We want it to end up about the consistency of a thick biscuit batter. You can see if this were a regular bread dough, that would be collecting into a dough ball. We do not want that. We want it to almost look ragged and torn apart. And then we'll take it immediately to the work surface. Is roll this dough out of the bowl. And I have some regular white rice flour here. If we keep the edges kind of coated with rice flour, this should come out as a single large dough mass. A little bit of flour to keep things together. I like to work on a piece of canvas. This is just regular canvas available at any good fabric store, and it enables you to turn doughs around without having to worry about picking them up. There's our bread dough. We're going to be weighing it out, portioning it out, scaling it as bakers would say, into about 24-ounce pieces. And I use a regular plastic scraper. These are available online or from some suppliers. And just cut the dough into 24. That only happens once in 100. But into 24-ounce pieces. Molding the loaf of bread, or shaping it to fit the pan, we always want to have the smoothest side down. And the reason for that is that's going to become the outside of your loaf. I like to work with a circular shape, fold the bottom to the top, flatten it down. You're going to want the loaf to be about that long. So what I do is I fold the ends in. It gives me a basic rectangle to work with. Just mold the loaf, shorten it, and place it in the pan. There we are, ready to go. All right, at this point we have the loaf of bread shaped or molded. It's in the pan. Smooth side up, nice looking loaf of bread. We're going to cover it with a clean towel that's lightly floured, and all that will do is help this not stick to the dough as it rises. And for good measure, we'll lightly flour the dough. So we're going to cover this up, leave it in a warm spot for about an hour, or until it rises to be double in size, which will make it about this much over the pan. It's been sitting here now for just about an hour, covered up with cloth, and as you can see, it's risen up. Time on this is going to be about 45 minutes at 425 degrees. A nice side and bottom bake. And normally to test bread to see if it's fully baked, you thump it. And you should be able to hear just a very light thumping sound. This cracking on the top is kind of a rustic appearance. If you did not want that, before the bread went, after it went in the pan, before you covered it up, you could brush it lightly with oil. And that would give you this sort of an appearance, the same smooth crust across the top of the bread. I happen to prefer this.
Be creative and have fun baking your gluten-free bread. See oneglutenfree.com for recipes and details on many tasty gluten-free mixes. Visit us at Cafe 2 in Sayre, Pennsylvania.